Well, it says I'm live. Well, I'm certainly not dead. So we'll see. Hopefully people will tune in. I'm going to do a couple more things to prepare. And we're just a few minutes away from beginning. So if you're watching this, there's always a little bit of a delay. I encourage questions. I encourage interaction, participation. So again, if I'm talking to air, that's fine. And if I'm not, then there's always a delay. So you may ask a question. It's only going to take me a few minutes to get to it, but also to even see that it's there. We'll get started in a few minutes. God damn. I am so coming out for you. Holy shit. Good morning. I don't know if people are having trouble connecting or if they're already on. I really don't know. If you're there, please say something. And again, there's always a little bit of a delay, so I may not always see it right away. Welcome to live chat. Guard your privacy. It's hard to tell whether people are on or not. I have several different sources of people connecting. And, we're still a minute or so away. Good morning. We're going to give it a few minutes. A lot of people RSVP'd, so I'm going to give it a couple minutes and see if anybody actually shows up, which I think they will. Good morning. We're giving a couple minutes to see if people log in. There's always a delay, so we don't know. I don't know if people are already on and watching kind of dead air. So let's give it a couple moments here, give people a chance. We'll get started. And hello, blessings, and thank you. That's nice to have a greeting. Very much confirms that that's a real person and they're online. Typically when I'm presenting live and I have an audience, I usually kind of drag things out for 10 or 15 minutes to let everybody kind of get online. or actually a kind of attend. But I usually pretty much start on time because it's unfair to the people that are on time to make them sit and wait. So we'll just give it a couple minutes. And again, there is a delay. Anything you type in, a question or a comment, anything that I say, and as I'm waiting, for all I know, there's a dozen people online already, I don't know. So there's always a delay for me to be able to see what the results are. We have a lot of people RSVP'd in 3 different states. But, I've learned with Meetup that sometimes I'll get 25 people at RSVP even that morning, and 1 or 2 may show up. People do take it a little bit for granted, which is fine. Plans change, etc. I got a lot of good fun stuff in store for us today. Good morning. There's always a bit of a delay, so we're giving it a moment here to see how many people show up. I've had like 20, 30 people RSVP, and so we're giving them a moment. There has been some glitches in the past, and I don't know what the glitches are. Some people had trouble connecting, some people have not, and so it's kind of stuff that I'm kind of working out and evening out. So we're giving it a few moments as people log on. You can see it's already starting to happen. So again, I like to start on time, not to delay the people that are on time, but there's a lot of glitches. So until we work these things out, I kind of drag things out a little bit just before we start in a couple minutes. Got a lot of fun things in store. I got a lot of good ideas, and what I like to kind of present as myself is that I look at myself something as somebody who's here to straighten out the crooked ways. So much of the knowledge and information you get from mystical paths and pretty much everything in the world, spirituality especially, and mystical paths, is not always wrong, but it's not right either. It's not complete. And the problem is that when something is not complete, it misleads. And even if you miss the bullseye by an inch or a centimeter, it's still a miss. And when we're talking about spirituality and mysticism, we don't want to miss, because otherwise we've invested a lot of time to get somewhere. And if anything's off a tiny bit, then all of our efforts are wasted. So what I present in my workshops and in my work and my workbooks and my website and my live sessions is to straighten out those crooked paths. The crooked paths, again, aren't wrong. They just take you in a zigzag way to get to where they're going. And also often they miss the mark. Bottom line is, if a blind man leads another blind man, they're all both going to fall in a ditch. And so I'm motivated in my work to try to give people the right information that's fun and interesting and challenging, but make sure that it's correct. So we're getting ready to start. Got a few people online. Good morning. Namaste, Radhe Radhe. I have a whole lot of mystical greetings that I like to give. There's an endless supply of them. Welcome to Spiritual Triangle. My name is Krishnanand. And we're going to be talking about tarot, a symbolic exploration through mind and spirit. This is the concept of today's workshop. Again, a lot of my work, what's motivated my work for so long is that it frustrates me when I see that so much of the information that's provided, that's available to us out there, is either wrong or incomplete. And it's not intentionally that way. Nobody's deliberately doing that. But either way, we end up investing a lot of time and energy into things that then we're mystified why we're not getting results. We're not getting results because they're off the mark a little bit. So I'm here to try to help straighten those things out. We'll talk about my qualification of why I can do that in a little bit. I never ask people to trust me. I want to earn your confidence and earn your trust. Sorry if my glasses are kind of glinting off the light. It's helping me to see. So we're going to begin the tarot workshop. Why did Siddhartha teach the Eightfold Path? And of course, right away you're thinking, what's that got to do with tarot? Well, I'll tell you. Siddhartha Gautama Buddha taught the Eightfold Path because it isn't the path or the steps to enlightenment. That's not what the Eightfold Path is. The Eightfold Path that he teaches is to prepare you to become in a position of being enlightened, to clear out and clean out all the wrong things. The Eightfold Path is about living correctly and thinking correctly and breathing correctly and all these different kinds of things. Because once we actually begin the actual efforts, the jhana, the meditations to become enlightened, we've got to get rid of all this other stuff. Eat right, exercise right, healthy in mind and body and spirit in so many ways. So these images here, you'll see, I'm kind of sharing a little bit, that this top one that is exactly where the Buddha was enlightened. The Bodhi tree is no longer there, but that is in Gaya, India, and I was there a couple of years ago. And this one below it is at Sarnath, where he gave the first teachings, and that's me there. A wonderful journey that I went on through Nepal and India. It was my 5th trip to India. So my point is that all paths, mysticism, and even Buddhism, the Eightfold Path is not to teach you literally how to become enlightened. It's to teach you how to prepare yourself. Because until you get rid of, clean up, and clean out all of these toxic obstructions through wrong living and wrong thinking and wrong speaking, then we're not in a position to be able to have the clarity to become enlightened. So again, what does this have to do with tarot? Well, because mystical paths are there to prepare you. What tarot is truly usable for, and all these other forms of mysticism that I teach that have been available to us for thousands of years, is to prepare you for a greater endeavor. For example, I teach a lot of Kabbalah, and that's going to be a very important, significant thing in today's teaching about tarot, because they are totally linked. That's one of the things not a lot of people know. They are totally linked. And Kabbalah is one of my favorite forms of mysticism. It's complicated, it's cerebral, it's beautiful, it's thorough, it never misses a mark. And yet many Kabbalists themselves don't even know about what's beyond Kether, the top Sephiroth. The top Sephiroth is the beginning of manifestation, the creative force of God. But above that are 3 different dimensions: Ein Sof Hour, Ein Sof, and Ein. Ein is truly God's abode. And so what Kabbalah and tarot and these things do is actually put you in a position to gain access to these other areas. So this is very important. If we want to run a marathon, we better train. We better get fit. We better get healthy. We better clean up not just our mind and just our body, and eat right, carbo load, etc. We also better have a very strong mental stamina to be able to do something like that. Let me check and see if there's any urgent questions. Thoughts were on the monetizing spiritual community. I was sent here from your peers and appreciate your comment. Okay, that's a fair question. I don't think that's a bit of an elaborate answer. I'm not for selling a product just for selling a product. In order to be able to create and invest the time and effort into producing the knowledge that I've gained through a lifetime of study and experience and practice, in order to be able to do that, I've also got to pay my bills. So ultimately, to run a website, to run this, to put this together, takes hours to be able to produce this slideshow and the efforts that I've had, and a lifetime of study and research. So certainly, it is fair and appropriate for people to be compensated for their skill and talent and the things that they share. Now, I don't require it. I have fees for my work, especially my live sessions and my workbooks, and for my books that are in bookstores. But I also am kind of a soft touch. I will ultimately work with anybody for as long as I can for whatever they can pay, and even if that's nothing. And I have a history of doing that. And I found that people don't take advantage of it. People have always been very generous, and if they had no resources to provide, well, then I taught them anyway. I'm not going to turn my back on that responsibility. Hopefully that answers your question. Let's get back to where we were. So this tarot workshop today is going to unlearn you on the misgivings and the misguidings of what tarot ultimately was and is. It's surreal how common and wrong the general information about tarot and so many other mystical paths actually is. I mean, you would think just by chance alone, 30% of it would be correct online, but it's not. And I'm not emotional about it. It's just, again, I feel an obligation after spending a lifetime of study and involvement with these paths to be able to share the authentic information on how they actually work and why. Because what they actually are used for is so much more grand than what people think they are. So we can see here in my little bullet point, the topics today will be 2 origins of tarot. That's very important. How it works and why is directly related to where it comes from. The Rider Waite and other decks, we're gonna have a little fun with that. Divination with tarot, that's one application of it. Divination is, of course, foretelling the future and forecasting things and basically getting some insights into our circumstances. True use of tarot, which is beyond divination. Divination is just something it coincidentally kind of does. That's not its purpose. The major arcana, we're going to go over the major arcana of the deck, the minor arcana, and the court cards and the suits. So we're going to take a tour and have a good time through all these things. And again, when I see a question or something there, I will do my best to try to address it. Always remember there's a delay. When I say there's a delay, you're probably getting that about 20 seconds, maybe even 25 seconds after I said it. So whatever you're typing in, it might take me a moment to respond to it or even see it. And it might be in the middle of a sentence anyway. So these are our topics today. Let's have some fun and let's have some visuals with it too. The origins of tarot. What Google says, 15th century tarocchi is an Italian word, and that's pretty much what you're going to see on Google is these kinds of things. 15th century creation, and it was a playing cards, etc., that kind of evolved from some mystics and etc. Wrong. That is completely wrong. It's not even close. That is, again, we have a term in the mystical realm, mystical groups around the world that we call the underground stream. I'm giving you a very initiate term. So please don't abuse it. Because if you don't know what the underground stream is, don't go around saying it, because people that are mystics that do know it will immediately gravitate to you. The underground stream is the true, thank you for your thank you, the true body of knowledge and history that has been untouched by agendas, politics, and organized religions. The underground stream is a term we use for the true body of knowledge and history of the way things really are. It's not made up, and you can access it, and it's not just a bunch of people talking in a room at a convention like I was at the OTO in Washington, D.C. many years ago, filled with hundreds of adepts and initiates and mystics that are well-trained, very smart people. We don't get all blown away and surprised and talk about these conspiracies and scandals of the misinformation that's out there, because we can just talk comfortably about what we know is true. And we all have the same information, same knowledge, because the truth is simple, you know, when you see it. I quote a lot of different scripture in a lot of different areas, and I'm not confused. I have my specific path. But one of my favorites is, as Christ says, knock and it shall be open to you. Seek and you shall find. He doesn't say sit on your butt and it'll just come to you. He says knock and it shall be open to you. Seek and you shall find. If you seek your esotericism and your true knowledge, you will find it. And so mystics discover the underground stream, and we get the true body of knowledge is because we seek, and we seek with our hearts, and we seek diligently. Again, I've spent a lifetime of study and research around the world. My little library of mysticism is small, but it's exclusive and it's stuff that you can't get pretty much anywhere else. And I went to far regions to get it. I got some bookstores in India that you can't even find anything that in these other stores, they're not available. And these things are in English. Anyway, moving on. So that's wrong. So the origins of tarot The timeline is a bit unknown. It's well before the 15th century. The Sanctuary of the Gnosis, a mystical conference, you could say, and that has continued to happen on occasion. And I don't know, the last one was around the 15th century, I think. Rabbis, adepts, and initiates comprise the body of the Sanctuary of the Gnosis. Gnosis meaning knowledge. And this is basically a get-together. And these at one of the Sanctuary of the Gnosis, who knows when, a long, long time ago, and I wish I could give you, if I don't have the right information, I'm not going to give you anything. I'm going to tell you I don't know, which is rare for me because I know quite a bit, because I'm very, very persistent. This group of the Sanctuary of Gnosis, as they were working with the Tree of Life in Kabbalah, somebody came up with this idea saying, this system is so precious and so sacred and so valuable, we cannot lose it. And it's only a matter of time before conventional society and the Gestapo, spiritual Gestapo, organized religions, etc., find a way to put a stop to it and bury it like they do with everything else. They provide that misinformation for so long that eventually becomes the new normal. That's what people think is right when it's not. I mean, a good example of that for me is always every year I get a good laugh at people bringing trees in their home and decorating with lights. Good Christians. And if you ask any of them why they're putting a tree in their home, I imagine aliens coming out of the planet and seeing us putting trees in our home with lights and decorations on and thinking like they took them thousands of years to move outdoors from outdoors to indoors, and here they are bringing trees in their home. Because it has pagan origins, etc. And so that's an example of how an organized religion has taken a concept and, in a sense, bastardized it, and I don't mean that in a bad way, to conform to their truths. And eventually, it just becomes their thing. It never was. Neither was Easter, by the way. Whole other workshop. So these rabbis, adepts, and initiates at the Sanctuary of the Gnosis know how valuable and essential the Tree of Life in Kabbalah actually is, and they want to preserve it for centuries, for the time immemorial. And one of them first said, well, how about we create a bunch of symbols to represent the meaning and concepts of the Sephiroth and the paths in the Tree of Life. And one guy who might have been me in another life, I don't know, because my first reaction when I heard this was the same, was, dude, where'd you got that? The Hebrew alphabet is a symbol, a path of symbols. Hebrew alphabet are not letters and just sounds. Each letter has an absolute meaning and significance and is a path on the tree. And they're not accessible to everyone because you still got to read and study to know what they mean. And so another initiate said, how about some pictures, like hieroglyphs, like images? A picture says 1,000 words. How about pictures and images that are archetypal, that convey the concepts and the meanings of the paths and the Sephiroth on the Tree of Life? Hands down, they all said that's it. And tarot was created. Now, you'll see me referring to the Rider-Waite deck that we're also familiar with. Not just because the copyright is expired and I can use it online. That's a good reason too, though. But because the Rider-Waite deck is so organically simple and beautifully designed and so pure, because if it isn't almost the exact same thing that the illustrators did back at the Sanctuary of the Gnosis, who knows when it was, then it's modeled right after it. Now, I know that the artist from the Rider-Waite deck, I can't think of her name at the moment, it's either Rider-Waite, she meditated sincerely to compose these images for the tarot deck. She either channeled it from the Sanctuary of the Gnosis or she had access to it because it's identical. The colors, the images, the concepts, there's no spin here. So the origins are very important because it is a pictorial a representation of the tree of life in Kabbalah. It wasn't coincidental. It wasn't created afterwards. It literally is and was originally created just to be a pictorial and imagery expression of the Kabbalah's tree of life. So that answers that. What's the origins of tarot? That's it. No reply saying, no. Okay, good. No argument. Well, yeah, there's always a delay, so we'll see. So hopefully you're scratching your heads. Hopefully a few of you are thinking, wow, that's really interesting to know, because I doubt that many people know it. Tarot is such a prolific part of our society in the New Age world and psychic areas that it's taken a little bit for granted. No, it's based on historical fact. I don't teach anything based on my own opinions or theories. Nothing ever. I'm not going to just give, if I ever do, I'm going to say my opinion or my theory is this. I'm going to present it that way. I'm never going to give you any information that I'm saying is matter of fact. So yes, what I'm giving you is absolute fact. The sanctuary of the Gnosis was a real thing, and it still is occasionally. I don't know when. And it is, the origins of tarot is a representation of the tree of life. That's a fact. That's not a theory. That's how strong I am about it. And if you do your homework really well, you go down the underground stream, you will see that you'll find the same evidence. I'm trying to read some of these, so excuse me. Yes, Smith. So yeah, that's her name, Pamela Coleman Smith. As I was saying, and I'm not sure if you're already here, that I think she's a wonderful artist and a great mystic, and she's legit for sure. And she either channeled the original images from the sanctuary of the Gnosis that were created for the tree of life, and or was able to access it and saw them. And this is the deck we have today. And to this day, I prefer the Rider-Waite. I mean, I have the Thoth deck for Crowley, and it's absolutely amazing. But I prefer Rider-Waite to almost anything because it's just so simple and pure, and it's archetypal images that we can all relate to and connect to. I think it does the job. So again, I'm not presenting you a theory. I'm going back before Coleman and Waite and Rider and where these things actually come from. I have not been able to yet indulge in the very extensive underground stream research that I need to do to link Coleman to the sanctuary of the Gnosis. But again, my theory, and I'll always present it that way so you know what the difference is. My theory is that she either channeled it or they had access to it. And again, as mystics, I can tell you that we all get access to a lot of things that we don't talk outwardly about. I have access to film and knowledges and books and things that I won't always say where I got them, but I mean, I can produce them and show them. And our privacy and secrecy in esotericism is not cult-like. It's not meant initially not meant to hold people out. It's meant to protect. And this is why tarot was begun as an illustration of the tree of life, is because they were trying to protect and preserve the knowledge and the paths on the tree of life, because it is a system of enlightenment. That's what the tree of life is. And this is what tarot is. And that's what we're here to discuss today, is that, and there's the tree of life. Now on the tree of life, I sometimes forget what's coming up next. So there's an illustration showing what I'm talking about. So if you're familiar with the tree of life, and even if you're not, we'll take a real quick tour of that. What you're seeing here are the round things that are called the Sephiroth. This is Malkuth. This is the kingdom. This is like earth and our physical manifestation phenomena. This is Keter. This is the creative God force power and the chain of events and system that goes through the process of creation and inception and conception of thought, of magic, of creation, etc. And when we go back the other way, that is the path back up towards in line, back towards the Godhead. So I'm not sure you can see so clearly on this, is each Sephiroth is represented or is assigned a tarot set of numbers, the tens, and a suit, the wands, the cups, etc. And each path you see here, which you can't see as clearly, for example, this one right here says Kof. That is the Hebrew letter of that path. Kof is not just some random letter. It has a meaning to it. And it means back of head. and that is directly related to your pineal gland and traveling consciously. And this is represented by the moon card in the deck, which is also the astrological correspondence to that is Pisces. And no one disagrees with that. And so each path on the tree of life is part of the major arcana. It's not a coincidence that the paths on the tree of life are the exact same number as the major arcana cards. It's because the major arcana and the minor arcana were created to illustrate and express the paths on the tree of life and the Sephiroth. So this is, again, a diagram, which I happen to have over here, which you can't see over here on the outside of my room, that I hang on the wall, which is my tree of life that shows all of these. I'm happy to email and present this to you. My Kabbalah workbook has this as a handout, and it's either, if you download the book, it's just there, and if you buy the book, then it actually is a little laminated thing that you can have sitting next to you while you're reading the book, so you can study it and get the most out of it. So again, the Sanctuary of the Gnosis concluded that the best way to preserve the knowledge and the system of the tree of life was to preserve it in archetypal images that would never go away, instead of all these lengthy descriptions. Because if you study and read, even my Kabbalah book, or what I've studied was Israel Regardi's Garden of Pomegranates, which is this thick. I mean, I've never seen anything more thorough on Tree of Life, and it absolutely goes into the tarot and Sanctuary of the Gnosis. But to study the Tree of Life, Sephiroth by Sephiroth, and path by path, again, we're talking about a book this thick, and a lot of what he's saying is he's citing other sources that he got his information from. It's huge. But these images evoke automatically. That's what archetypal images do. They evoke and stimulate our natural, instinctive, intuitive sense to be able to connect to the meaning of them. And this is what the path on the Tree of Life and the tarot is for. So let's real quick segue to other decks. So we talk about the Rider-Waite, and most people are familiar with this. And again, it's my favorite. It's just so pure and natural. It doesn't bait and switch or go other ways. It's not indulging itself. It stays true to the meaning of the tarot and its function. And for those of you who are just kind of joining, I also had already mentioned that divination is just one use of it. And I think we're going to get to that soon, so maybe I won't go on that right now. So again, we have all these other decks, and you can see here in the image, if you can see it. I'm not sure if you can, how well it comes up on your YouTube screen. We got one that's some kind of like little sexy kind of thing where women are in lingerie and people are disrobing themselves. That's one tarot deck. I don't remember what it's called. I don't know. The erotic deck instead of esoteric, probably. The other one is the Harry Potter deck. It's cute, but please, it's insulting. It is kind of cute, but to true mystics. And then, of course, what we have down here is the cat tarot. It's cute, and I get it, but unfortunately, there's a lot of people that think this is worthwhile. And I'm not saying you can't use it for some form of divination. You can use anything. Euro stocks for I-Ching, that's what I use, or coins. And I know Armenian mystics that read tea leaves, and they do a great job. So you can use any medium that you want, but let's stay true to the form. So here's my favorite, Millennial Tarot. I mean, I'm just hunting around looking for some random stuff, and I'm thinking like, oh, let's see if I can find something like kind of quirky. Millennial Tarot. What does it say? Your future in familiar terms, and insta-famous is what it said below her. So this is exactly kind of what I mean, is that our psychic new age culture is, as somebody pointed out about monetizing these things. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is crap. I'm trying to refrain from four-letter words because I find this offensive, and as harmless as it seems, it's not. You're taking sacred knowledges and truths and information that basically are materialized and monetized so badly that they completely lose their meaning. They completely lose their value. And so I can't tell how many people that I meet as I tour and present and write that start asking me, what about these kind of things? And they're taking it seriously. Like, why am I so judgmental? Because I'm criticizing these things, and I'm trying to be polite as I can by basically telling them, like, oh my God, because this is complete garbage. It's completely useless. Please don't stay away from it. Just get away from it. There's other ways to be entertained with these kind of things. And I think it's not just a bad use of them. I think it's misleading. And again, part of my motivation, the main motivation of my work as a mystic with the public, is to straighten out the crooked ways. And this is exactly what I mean by giving you the real information on where it comes from and how to use it and what it's truly used for, which is not just to Insta-famous Instagram social media post or to simply divinize the future. So we're going to get into that a little bit too. So the next one is, one of the use of tarot is divination. That's the most common, popularly well known. But again, that's not what it was intended use for. Its intended use is something we're going to go into next. But it does do a great job with divination. Divination meaning, again, to predict and forecast future events and circumstances to be able to minimize the damages that we could incur and maximize our potentials and our opportunities. And I think that's very valuable. As a reader myself, especially when I started out back in the mid-90s, and I started out as just a reader and numerologist and tarot, etc. And, I would get people paying their money to come and see me. And one guy's coming to mind that was basically saying to me, like, he wanted to know if he was going to get his raise and promotion at work. That's all he cared about. And I'm seeing as a medium all this stuff that he really needs to pay attention to that has nothing to do with that. Spiritual things, mystical things that have nothing to do with his material endeavors, ambitions. He wouldn't want anything to do with that. Now, as a paying customer, he has the right to be able to get the information that he wants. And as a service provider, I have an obligation to give that. So I want to tell him, you're way off the mark here, buddy. You're missing the bigger point, the bigger picture. You're missing the important things because you're focused on this material garbage. That's going to happen either way. I realized that his promotion, which I saw he was going to get, and his raise, absolutely, it was hands down. But that was going to happen anyway, whether I told him or not. Instead of telling him that he's going to find $5 on the street by telling the future, I thought it was way more valuable to tell him what he could do with it. That a few steps more, if you look to your right, there's a homeless guy that if he doesn't eat today, he's going to die. So you're going to find $5 on the street. But what's more important is that if you look to the right, not the left or just straight ahead, when you go forward, you're going to see somebody that really needs that. And that's how you can apply it and use it. And I felt it was far more valuable trying to convey to this man what he could do with his position and raise rather than whether he was going to get it or not. So divination with tarot and other mediums is very effective and very fun and very useful in many ways, but it's not its intended purpose. It's a side effect. It's a consequence, and it does it really well. But let's be careful not to abuse it. We want to keep in mind as we're using it even for divination purposes, which I also do, what its true intention is. Because the divination, predictions, and forecasting is simply to evolve our mystical consciousness. So the true use of tarot, you can see there I say tree of life, which I already explained, to use and preserve the tree of life, the knowledge that's in it, in archetypal images, and it does a phenomenal job at that. And then also because when we use the tarot the way it was designed and what's in true intended use is, as with all mystical paths, is simply to evolve our consciousness to mystical levels, cosmic levels. Forget psychic. That's a side effect. It's virtually useless. It's entertaining, it's interesting, but it's still part of the material phenomena. Let's not forget that. Mystical consciousness and mystical endeavors and practices is about evolving and expanding our mind and our spirit to a more evolved state. What is that ultimate ambition or end game? To be perfected spiritually. Not mentally, not physically, not materially. No, it'd be perfected spiritually. Because when you get perfected spiritually, well, you don't give a crap about all the other stuff. You're fine. Starving, homeless, whatever. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying that you literally wouldn't even care because you're completely okay inside. I'm not there yet. So true use of tarot is to capitalize on and apply the knowledge and leading, mentoring, and guidance on the tree of life. That's what it was designed for. To evolve your consciousness from material consciousness to mystical consciousness, and eventually to full spiritual consciousness. As I mentioned in the beginning, why did the Buddha teach the Eightfold Path? It's not technically a path of enlightenment. It is 8 steps, 8 very important things to do to basically clean out all your garbage, to put you in a position to become enlightened. Because as long as you're not thinking right, speaking right, acting right, etc., as they are in the past, well, then you're not even eligible. I'm not saying you're not worthy. We're all worthy. I'm saying that when he's teaching you to think right and speak right, what he's saying is, what the Buddha was saying in that branch of it, same with Ashtanga Yoga, is if you don't speak right, well, then there's a couple of your brain cells that are aware of this and they're distracted. You're going to need absolute, complete focus and concentration to be able to meditate your way into a state of samadhi, enlightenment. Absolute. Not 99.99999, but 100%. And if you have anything that you're not even consciously aware of, but subconsciously aware of something you shouldn't have done or didn't do right, well, then there's a brain cell that isn't available to you to do your dhyan, your meditations, and you're going to need 100% of them. So the Eightfold Path and all these things, the tarot is there to help prepare us, to use as a tool to clean out our garbage, to remove the obstructions that are in our way mentally, intellectually, and mystically, and ultimately spiritually, to put us on the threshold. We still have to walk through the door. There's still a final step to walk through the door to become perfected spiritually, to become one with the Godhead. But we got to get to the doorstep first. And what tarot and mystical paths do is teach us exactly that. The tree of life is a system to evolve you, like the Eightfold Path, like Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 branches of yoga, are available to us to be able to help us purify and clean out all of our garbage so we can actually focus and do the things that we need to do, which is going to be incredibly hard. I feel compelled to point out one of my favorite ways to emphasize that. The sage Patanjali, at the beginning of the Yoga Darshans, the first thing he says, this is the author of the Yoga Darshan, the Ashtanga Yoga, whole thing he's going to explain to you. And he says, in the very beginning, I'm going to explain to you Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 branches and steps to become enlightened, to become liberated from the material phenomena, liberated, which is what enlightenment is. It will take you multiple lifetimes to achieve it. And if you can ever pull it off, which most of you never will, it is nearly impossible. It'll take you lifetimes to achieve it. And most of you will never even get close because it's that hard. Or you can just do bhakti yoga. Anyway, let's go back to this Eightfold Path. And I'm like, when I saw that in my Yoga Darshan, because I have the Prapitaka, which is, again, a very rare text. Very rare, very hard to find. It's just a wonderful thing that I've got, the Pradipika. I always say it wrong. And I said, wait a minute, what did he just say? He said that he's going to teach this thing that we're almost never going to pull off. Only a few people will ever be able to do it out of millions that try. And it'll take multiple lifetimes, or you just do bhakti yoga, which we'll get to in a minute. Not in a minute, but at the end. I'm going to mention that. So the true use of tarot to preserve the path of enlightenment on the tree of life, the steps and measures and things we need to do to be able to attain mystical consciousness. So let's go into the deck. The major arcana and the minor arcana. Now, anybody got a question? Okay. I'll give it a moment. So I don't know how much familiar everybody is. I would assume we got some different levels of mystics here. A couple of you are mystic gangsters. I can see people that I'm familiar with. Mystic gangsters is my own little term for people that join onto my side and get some of the teachings and trainings that I'm offering. Mystical gangsters, we're out to be mystical gangsters. So the major arcana, the minor arcana, they're integral to each other. And let's just take a tour. So the major arcana, the Fool's Journey. The Fool is card 0, key 0, the beginning and the end. You can see on my list here, we have all the major arcana cards down to 21 in the world, and then it begins again with Fool, because it's all going back on itself. It's a circle. It never ends. The Fool's Journey, as he endeavors to go through his life experience to become enlightened and realized, to become spiritually perfected or mystically conscious. He's going through and he's willing to endeavor and go on this adventure through these experiences, and who he meets along the way and what they mean and what they give to him and how he uses it is what it's all about. So the major arcana describes and illustrates the Fool's Journey. Excuse me. Cheers, a little water. First he meets the magician. The magician with his 4 implements that represent the suits of the elements, with one arm below and one arm up, representing as above, so below. The magician is the first individual he meets on his journey to realization. And that example is perfect. The magician card itself, the first one we get to, and well, even the Fool's card, is rife with so many symbols that as a mystic that's trained, I get them right away. I know what the red robe means. I know why his robe is tied in a certain place and in a certain way. I know why he's wearing white underneath. I know why he's got one arm down, one arm up, why the implements are on the table. I know all that. So again, the beauty of that is that even if the written knowledge of Kabbalah and Tree of Life goes away, which eventually it all does, these archetypal images will always be there. And eventually there's always going to be somebody who, through the underground stream, was handed this knowledge to keep it consistent. Now, again, even before I studied Kabbalah, being a mystic and well trained, I could look at any of these symbols and kind of get a sense of what they mean, what they're trying to imply to me. The Fool certainly does. The Fool, of course, is us. The significator is the name of the card of who we're reading for. Ourselves or someone else is the significator. That's what that's called in tarot. Well, when you get right down to it, the real application of tarot is the Fool's Journey, and we are the Fool. We are the significator. Now, the Fool is not a fool. The whole thing about a court jester fool back in the Middle Ages was because this is the guy that looked and seemed and acted kind of insane, but clearly knew quite a bit more than everybody else did, and was actually the confidant, the voice behind the curtain, to give you the Wizard of Oz reference, that was actually in charge of the king. So what we have on all the major arcana is the Fool going through a sequential journey to each individual that isn't just a person, which can sometimes represent an actual physical person in your life when you're doing a reading, but typically represents a concept, a state of evolution of our spirit and our consciousness to be able to continue to progress and evolve through life experiences, through states of mind, through perceptions. What the major arcana and the whole deck provides to us is we get to see the world through a mystical set of lenses. As we become mystics and spiritualists, we don't see the world the same way that anybody who's a materialist does. This guy saw his raise at work as power and luxury. I saw his raise at work as opportunity to evolve his spirit, to learn discipline, to contain his pride and ego. I don't know why I'm air quoting, because that was literally to contain his pride and ego. He needed to be warned of that. And so through spiritual lenses, we see the raise at work, the promotion at work, whatever it may be, we see it from a different perspective. We see it as an opportunity to be able to grow and evolve spiritually in all ways, no matter what it is. My death experience, that was a hard one. I mean, for 3 years, I was barely capable of feeding myself and thinking clearly, let alone being spiritual again. My memory was deleted. My whole identity was deleted for almost 3 years. One other story, right away, people are intrigued by that. And I'm going to do a workshop on my death experience probably very soon. But in spite of having my memory and my identity deleted, because I had spent many lifetimes in spirituality and mysticism, that's the only way I saw things. So I automatically, a deferred format application is that I automatically, without trying, viewed my experience through a mystical lens. What does it mean? What's the purpose of it? To material people, I'm annoying because they don't want to hear about what things mean. They just want to go get some food and go shopping. And I get that. And I'm not here to lecture any of them or anybody else, really. I think they're missing out, but that's my perspective. They think I'm missing out. So the Fool's Journey teaches us through each card, through each individual, and each concept that he experienced on his journey to the world, the 21st card represents the concepts that are important to evolve and bring him along. You could say in many ways, because it's literally true, that every card, from the Magician to the Emperor to the Hierophant to the Hermit, is another teacher on the path. When we're ready, our teachers show up. Sometimes it's the same teacher taking on different roles. Sometimes I'm a Hierophant to a client, to a student. Sometimes I'm the Emperor. Sometimes I'm the Magician. Sometimes I'm the Fool. My role can shift and change based on what it is that they need. As a spiritual guide and trainer, that's my role to adapt to those things. The Fool's role is to adapt to all of these different circumstances, personalities, and concepts, and to be able to extract from them what it is they intended and what they're teaching, what they're providing to them. So he can continue his journey to evolve. Once the Fool goes through the entire major arcana and meets every individual through the deck and gets the 21st card of the world, he begins again at a higher octave. Same in numerology, 0 through 9, and what comes after that? 10, a 1 and a 0, higher octave of the same frequencies. And so every mystical path, alchemy, 7 stages, tarot with the 22 major and the 56, 54 minor arcana. All of these mystical paths, they bring you all the way through one system, and then you begin again, and you begin at a higher octave. And eventually, there's no more octave to go to. And you go to the top, and you go through, and you pierce through the material veil, through the abyss, which is part of the Kabbalah thing, which is basically where their major arcana begins. The abyss is the material illusion, the material phenomena. It's not authentic. It's the subjective reality. And what we're trying to do with the Fool's Journey is transcend the material phenomena and be able to extract a more cosmic consciousness, to be able to view objective reality, not subjective reality. In essence, the Buddha was describing what enlightenment is, and basically, I'm paraphrasing, he didn't use these exact words. He was basically saying enlightenment aligns you with and activates you existing within objective reality, not subjective. Not your opinion, but the way things really are. And those words were the way things really are. So there's the major arcana that represent the concepts and the lessons that we need to extract and learn to be able to evolve our consciousness. In a divination sense, certainly they represent certain features and people and individuals and experiences throughout our lives. And if you're channeling or focusing your tarot work through a divination system, well, then that's how you're going to see them. Again, whatever lenses you wear is how you're going to see them. The Hierophant might mean somebody, might not. Personally, I no longer do much divination, occasionally a little bit here and there, on top of the consciousness evolution and training that I'm providing to people. There's always going to be some predictions in my readings that I provide, but it's ultimately always there to guide and designed to mentor and train people to evolve their consciousness and spirit, not to tell them what's going to happen tomorrow. They're going to find that out anyway. Okay, minor arcana. Oh, more major arcana. I sometimes forget what my next slide is going to be, even though I got a little window that tells me what it is. So there's a little bit close up, again, of these personalities. Again, the imagery here. Everything is so precise. This was so carefully designed by Coleman Smith, by these sanctuary of adepts and of the Gnosis, that to create hieroglyphic images that represent the tree of life and how to evolve your consciousness and become enlightened, to become spiritually realized. Everything from the color of the robes, the hanged man hanging upside down is in a yoga asana. He's not just sitting there with his leg crossed. He's in the asana, showing perfect poise, his arm behind his back, the blue tunic, the halo around his head, showing enlightenment, that even though you see him as upside down, he sees you as upside down. He sees you as everybody in the world. They're upside down, because from his perspective, they are. And they are. He represents showing that when we start to get things right, then for a while, we're going to see the world really upside down. We're going to see him as upside down. One of my favorite Zen koans is, before studying Zen, a bowl is a bowl. While studying Zen, a bowl is no longer a bowl. And after studying Zen, a bowl is again a bowl. I'll cheat and give you a little bit of the meaning of that. Before studying Zen, a bowl is just a bowl. Everything is the way it is, our subjective reality. It's what I eat my cereal out of. While studying Zen, it breaks down your reality. It breaks down everything that you know. It breaks it apart. And suddenly you're seeing the bowl as atoms and molecules, as the empty vessel that it is. That's how it's used, not the object that it is, but the emptiness inside of it is what makes it useful. And that what I put in that bowl is used to fortify my body so I can physically serve the world and myself and God. Suddenly this bowl that was just this physical object has taken on these depths of meaning and concepts that are far beyond some little thing I'm eating my cereal out of. And after studying Zen, a bowl is again a bowl, meaning that when you walk by the Zen monk that's eating his cereal in that bowl, what you're seeing is just some guy eating his cereal, and he is. But he's also simultaneously aware, without activating or trying, of the molecules, the atoms, the vessel, the emptiness, the meaning of it, all that. But what you see, somebody just eating their cereal. So when we start to see the world upside down, when we start to evolve mystically and spiritually, it breaks down our reality, completely destroys it. And that's, in a sense, what I meant by I'm here to straighten out the crooked ways. I'm here trying to, in many ways, destroy the common perceptions that are incorrect or incomplete about mystical paths. Again, we're going to get into what qualifies me to do that. And I'm going to tell you why, because that's very important, because you shouldn't just trust everybody and anybody. I never ask for your trust. I'm always going to be willing to earn it and provide you evidence of that. So the minor arcana, the court cards and the suits and their numbers. So now we have basically a more focused look. If the major arcana is the more major concepts of life and life experience and consciousness and our evolution and growth and introspection and perception, well, then the minor arcana is like taking it and putting it under a microscope, getting a little bit of a closer lens, closer up. And so, from a distance, we see, I'm just going to use it's just random example. But let's say we see a pastor or a priest up at the pulpit sermonizing. Then we see him in a certain context. Revered, respected, knowledgeable, wise, all those kind of things. I can tell you as a public presenter and author that tours, I often get the luxury of being able to be viewed as something that is very well respected and admired because of what I'm presenting. And I love that. And I like to earn it, and I enjoy receiving it. And I definitely want to earn it. But at the same time, my son and my closest people, they know me as the guy that, leaves a mess in the bathroom and forgets to where his keys are and all that kind of stuff. So with the minor arcana, we get a little bit more intimate, closer look to these exact same frequencies and vibrations, but we get a little bit closer look to see them a little bit more in an informal way. So basically the minor arcana is basically an expansion of the major arcana. But if the major arcana in this analogy is like predicting what the weather's going to be like, hot in the summer, cold in the winter, well, then the minor arcana is telling you on this day it's going to be raining. On this day it's going to be 98 degrees, whatever it may be, what to wear, how to do it. So we get a little bit more detail. Many people will use tarot just as the major arcana. Often I do. Often I'll just do a reading and I'll just use the major arcana because I don't need the minor arcana. It depends on the person, depends on the subject. Same with numerology. We can use 0 through 10, or 0 through 9, or I use the whole 78 that correspond to the tarot deck and beyond. I am one of the few numerologists that will use triple digit numbers when they equal that. Numerologists are taught to reduce the numbers to single or double digits frequencies, and I do too. But when I arrive at a single or double digit frequency through a 3-digit number, well, then those 3 frequencies are expressed through that master number that's reduced to. And so they got to be taken into account. So I'm kind of old school, authentic kind of, that's how I look at it. My readings, whether it's tarot or numerology, is to illuminate. I feel like I don't have the right to deprive my client, my student, the perception and the insight to how we got to that. They have to have all the information. What they do with it is up to them. My role is to provide the knowledge and information. So the minor arcana, the court cards. So first the court cards, the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. Every suit represents something different. So again, we have the suits and the numbers. Now again, if you remember back where I was on the tree of life, I hope I don't regret going all this way back. The suits are all represented here. They're all part of the Sephiroth. So this Sephiroth Chokmah is wisdom, and it is the knights, and it is the suit of wands. There's only 4 suits. They're all representing one of the Sephiroth. These are like the more major events. So the reverse is true. While the number cards and suits are contained within the major Sephiroth of the tree, and the major arcana are the paths that link them all together. Where were we? Any questions? Not yet. Either I'm doing a really good job, or I don't know, maybe nobody online anymore. I don't know. So we're in the court cards. So the court cards are, again, the page, which represents a messenger, typically, or news or information. So if you're reading a significant on a person, then it might represent somebody coming to give you information. But the page cards represent the dissemination and the reception of knowledge and information, the conveyance. The knight is about action. It's about movement and motion, about putting things and applying them. The queen and the king represent the masculine and the feminine, the yin and yang aspects of the suits that they represent. Something a little more wise, a little more regal, a bit more trustworthy, that is to manage things. Now, again, instead of looking at these as people, look at these as a quality within ourselves. I pull one of these cards out, and I'm thinking, this is reminding me of what I need to be in this incident, in this circumstance, blah, blah, blah. So then we have the suits and number cards. Now, if you're seeing a correlation between everyday playing cards Jack through King, the aces, the number cards, etc. Well, yes, because playing cards evolved from tarot, not the other way around. So a way less interesting course would be the origins of playing cards and how do you really use them? How do you really use them? Well, win big at poker, I would think. But the origins of them is that they evolved from tarot, because tarot, again, was invented and designed and created to preserve the tree of life knowledge, but also because they knew that if they were caught practicing their mystical paths by the religious Gestapo, which we've always got some in the world, various religion. Sometimes it's Christian, but sometimes it's Muslim, sometimes it's the Jew, sometimes it's Buddhist. Who knows? Well, I don't think the Buddhists have ever been aggressive, but I'm sure they have their moments. But part of the preservation in archetypal images of the tree of life and all these things was also to avoid detection, because if the spiritual Gestapo, the religious Gestapo, came to your hut and said, "What are you doing? You better not be practicing some kind of witchcraft, or we're going to burn you at the stake," then you can say, "Oh no, we're just playing cards. It's just a little kid's game. See, little funny images. That's all it is." That went over so well that eventually playing cards evolved from that. And again, you can see the parallel between playing cards and the tarot deck is precise. Court cards, number cards, etc. What's missing from playing cards, of course, is the major arcana, because they have no place in it. So the suits and number cards, we're kind of going over that. So each one represents something different. The aces are the essence. They're the core of it. They are like the epitome of it, of the concepts that they represent. Then we have the numbered cards through the different suits. The pentacles, which represents the more material or earthly phenomena. Cups, which is more emotional and subconscious. Wands, which is about motion and action. And swords, which is about discrimination and cleaving the true from the false. One of my favorites. So again, understand what these things mean. When you look at these pictures, I mean, you see this picture of the 9 of swords, 10 of swords, with just 10 swords stabbed into somebody's body. That's pretty brutal. That's pretty grotesque, you know? This ain't Halloween yet, but that's pretty brutal because it evokes something. Now understand this too. I might as well throw this in there while it's on my mind. If you are getting a tarot reading and anybody starts telling you about upside down cards and this means something bad, like death, that's bullshit. Excuse me. That's garbage. There's no bad in mysticism or spirituality. It has a concept. And what this means, what the death card means, what the devil card means, any of those things mean is the concept, what they represent. And again, it's all about evolution and growth. It's never about anything bad. And no legitimate tarot reader will actually use an upside down card. That's not what they are. That's when somebody says something about monetizing spirituality. That's a good example of it. So I'm going to blow that apart right now. Sorry if I'm offending anybody that uses that or does that or thought that's real, but that's completely a scare tactic. That is like Fox News garbage to basically intimidate people and get them to pay more, thinking that something bad is coming. There are bad things coming. By doing my own reading after my death experience in 2013, it was clear as day predicted. I wish I would have done it the day before, because I wouldn't have been able to avoid it, because it was fate. It was destined to happen. But it was absolute, and it was clear as day. If you look at my chart that's on my website, the example that I give of when I present as a sample of my readings is my death day in 2013. It's undeniable. But again, the point of it is to learn what it can mean and why is it occurring, other than it's just destiny and it's karmas, but also what can I do to convert this to something spiritually beneficial? Because everything can be. Nothing happens for a bad reason. It always happens for one singular reason, to bring us closer to the Godhead, closer to the greater power, closer to divine love. That's it. Everything exists for that. The entire world, the material phenomena, is simply God's playground, simply for us to be able to use the materials that are in it, to be able to evolve our consciousness and our spirit and our hearts towards he or she, towards the divine love aspect of God. And I say he or she, to me it's more feminine. So that's a bit of a tour through the tarot themselves. Now, I mentioned to you that I would never ask for your trust, that I would want to earn your trust and confidence. So a little bit of advertising, I guess you could say, about myself. True mysticism. I'm an expert in all theology. I studied religions all my life. Originally, I started because I wanted to debate religious people because I thought they were full of crap. I thought they were hypocrites because all the thing I saw in the world was done in the name of God and name of religions. And I was like, wow, these people are evil. So I started at 8, 9 years old, 7 years old, wanting to train to debate them and beat them in debate so I could show them on their own terms. But what I found was true spirituality. Knocking it shall be open to you, seeking you shall find. And I became a spiritualist because of that. So I am an expert in theology in all religions. I've been studying all my life. Spiritualism, numerology, ceremonial magic. I'm a practicing, certified, initiated in all these areas. I'm not just somebody that studied on my own. I have joined organizations. I've had formal teaching and training in all these areas. Astrology, yoga, Kabbalah, alchemy. I'm a certified master alchemist from Dennis Hawk. Tarot, I Ching, Zen, much, much more. Again, I'm not just presenting this to you to brag. I'm presenting this to you because I want you to feel confident that the information I'm giving you is from an authentic source. And that is because, well, I was getting ahead of myself. Because so much of, again, what we're getting out there in our YouTube, Twitter generation here is conveniently misleading. And if we don't know that the person leading us to our destination, because we're blind, that they're blind too, well, then we're just going to fall into a ditch. It doesn't matter if they don't mean to, and if we mean well too. If we follow the wrong person the wrong way, then we're going to be led into a ditch. So your search for truths and information in these areas, spirituality, mysticism, and theology, should be from authentic sources. And so again, I want to present to you some of my qualifications so that you can feel comfortable that what I'm presenting to you is authentic. And yes, you can absolutely look all of it up. Good luck, because it's taken me, I'm 54, it's taken me decades. I've been studying since I was a child. It's taken me a lifetime. I've devoured volumes, libraries of material to be able to have the information that I have because I'm obsessed. I'm just fixated on knowledge. I'm a knowledge junkie. So I've consumed. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in quantum physics, but I'm a hobbyist there too. I just can't get enough. I read 2, 3 books at a time, and I've done that since I was 4 and 5 years old. So the people that you look to potentially lead you, guide you, provide you knowledge should be able to back it up. We're going to go into that. I think I have a slide coming up soon that goes into that a little bit more. So again, a little bit self-promotion. What I offer is readings that are very thorough and complete. Your average spiritual triangle reading is 16 pages or more. It's never set. It's going to be whatever it's going to be. And I'm getting paid the same either way. And sometimes they're 10 pages, sometimes they're 20. Sometimes they take me a couple days. Sometimes they take me a couple weeks because I don't stop until it's done. And I don't change the price. And these readings are not just to give you clarity on one particular thing. They're to be used for your whole life. If you look at the testimonials and some of the reviews that are posted on my website, you'll see that one of the most common things that I really enjoy hearing from my clients and students is Christian On works in layers. That whatever you get and you think you understand right now, a couple of days later, you're like, wow, like it really expands even more. And that's my whole point. My style, my method is to produce everything I'm giving to you in layers so that each time you read it and each time you involve yourself with it, you're going to be like, wow, I didn't see that before. I learned that from one of my teachers, that every time I was exposed to his work, I just got more and more out of it. And I was like, how did I miss that before? Well, it was right there because I was evolving myself. And when I first read it, I was limited in my capacity. By the second, third time, I'm getting way more. And I'm infusing that. I'm not telling you straight up across the brow what it is. I'm layering it in there because every time you come back. So it's designed to give you knowledge and insight for your entire life. Even if somebody gets a reading for just a temporary vibration, like a year. This is very true. Thank you, Audra, my mystic gangster, one of my favorite students. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's one of the things I enjoy the most about the work that I do is, and I can't help it. I cannot responsibly give you all the information right up front across the brow. It's irresponsible. It's not what a mystic does. I weave it in there, and so you'll get on whatever level you're at. And again, each time you read and involve yourself with it, you'll get a little bit more. When I say it gets you for your whole life, I'm not kidding you, that I have students and clients that will say to me 10 years later, they're still getting new stuff out of it. These are not temporary readings that tell you what's happening this week. The full spiritual triangle reading goes through your entire life from the moment you were born to well after your death into your next life. Take a look on the site. So I'm promoting that. Live sessions. I am in this way, a trainer and guide. I don't look at myself, I'm not a guru, I'm not a master, I'm not enlightened. I'm a trainer and guide. I straighten out the crooked ways through my workbooks, which is also listed there, through Mystic Gangster training. That's like packages. The packages are custom made. Somebody will say to me, I don't know what I want to learn. I don't know what I want to know. And based on their budget of time and some resources, I'll provide to them a custom made package, workbooks, live sessions, whatever it may be. And we can change it as we need. It's not a set thing. Based on your budget, on time and money, etc., that's what I'll do to design what it is that you need for you, not based on what I think you need. I'm intuiting that. I'm meditating on that significantly. Anytime somebody asks me, what do you recommend? I'll say, I'll get back to you tomorrow because I'm going to meditate on it overnight. And I'm going to receive what it is that you should know. That has nothing to do with me. It's not my opinion. It's what is being channeled from you and transmitted to me. So it's going to be very, very from everybody else, for everybody. See at the bottom, there's my website, spiritualtriangle.com. Please visit it. KrishnaAnand@spiritualtriangle.com. Please join an email list. It helps my ratings. It helps all these kind of things. When you like and subscribe to my channels, again, it's not just about monetizing. It's that in order for me to be able to continue to be able to disseminate proper information and spiritual guidance and teaching to people, that's correct. Well, then if I got to go work at Walmart to pay my bills, which ain't gonna happen, well, then I'm not going to be able to do it. So yes, I charge money for the things the services I provide, and I can assure you of this. First of all my work is guaranteed. If anybody chooses not to pay me, that's okay, because I'm going to give you the work first. Your sessions are done first, and you pay me after. The readings that you get, I have a lot of people asking me the pay link to pay right away, and the website asks that because it's designed that way. But it's not important. I'll give you the work first. If it takes me 2 weeks or 5 days or whatever, and usually the readings take 4 or 5 days, I'll provide that to you, and you can take a look at it. They're colorful. They're wonderful. I like to keep them entertaining and fun and very knowledgeable. So it's a journey. So that's kind of the services that I offer. What's next here? Oh, we're talking about qualified teachers and mentors. What qualifies a teacher and a mentor? Hard for me to see this. Catalyzation. What event catalyzed, activated their abilities? I recently was given a link to one of my newer students. I don't know if she's online today. And she was telling me about her prior teacher. And right away when I started hearing, I'm like, oh my God, I'm rolling my eyes. I'm trying to be polite. I'm not trying to talk crap. She gives me a link to this woman's website, and I'm looking at it, and she basically, her whole catalyzation was that she had some illness when she was a child, and that transformed her thinking and consciousness. That's legit. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm saying that's it. No study, no teaching from masters, no guidance from anything else. She had this one event in her life, and this suddenly qualified her to disseminate all this information, which was, by the way, most of it was wrong. And I felt very protective over this girl because she's my student. I'm very protective over my students. I have a responsibility to them. And so in very subtle ways, again, what I want to share is that how do you find a qualified teacher? They should have an event or series of events in their lives that absolutely triggered or activated supernatural abilities and insights. Hard for me to see that. Personal events, experience, there we go. Oh. So there you go. And then natural intuitions and instincts. Yes. Prior life work has sharpened my intuitiveness and abilities. So it carries over from prior lives. So they're called sanskars in Sanskrit. That means that you have tendencies and abilities that are preconditioned, kind of like in this life, you get muscle memory in a sense. Qualified teachers, that's very important. I didn't just do it all on my own. And the study I've done on my own is, again, I don't just read books on Buddhism or Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma, which is my religious path. I went to India. I've been there 6 times. And when I go looking for books, it's hard to find authentic scriptural books in English. And I don't have a choice because I don't speak Hindi or Sanskrit for sure. Take you a lifetime to study Sanskrit. And there's 3 levels of it. I searched and searched and searched, and I allowed God to guide me, and my guru, to basically just put me in the right place at the right time to find the knowledge and information that was written by authentic teachers. For example, the Goswamis. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one of the most revered saints and mystics and spiritualists, a descension of Radha, divine love herself. He didn't write any books. He wrote 8 verses, which is enough. It's all you need, but you can't understand it. But his disciples, which were also enlightened, realized personalities that descended with him on his mission on earth, wrote volumes of books. I'm not going to read some Western version or some unenlightened person's version of interpreting these things. I went to those and I got them from them. And I was able to find good, authentic translations into English from the Goswamis themselves. So even if, when I say qualified teachers, well, you can't go meet the good Gautama Buddha. He ain't here no more. My guru has left the earth too. But their disciples, their direct associates, have created and conveyed this knowledge to preserve it. Excuse me. Lifelong study. Does it sound like I'm talking about myself? Well, I am, because again, I'm offended by people that purport themselves to be qualified teachers and guides if they don't have these qualifications. What I'm suggesting to you is that why I think I'm qualified, or why I know I am, is because in addition to all those things, I've had a lifelong of study. When I mean lifelong, like I said earlier, I started reading when I was 3 and 4. And I was at the library getting stacks of books. I was making my mom insane. And by the time I was 11 and 12, it was about spiritual things and philosophical things. Lifelong study. To this day, I don't stop. I'm always enhancing and augmenting my studies. It's not about what's new. It's about, again, I don't care what's new. I don't want new versions of the Buddha's truth and of Chaitanya and Kripalu. They're giving me the essentials that are time immemorial. They don't change. Absolute capital A truth don't change based on the times. Let me see if there's a question here. Personal practice. I don't just use these things in theory. I am a ceremonial magician. I am a Kabbalist. I am a reader. I put these things in work. I do bhakti yoga. I do these meditations. I teach you from personal experience what works and what doesn't. I'm not saying that whatever works for me is going to work for you and vice versa. I'm saying that here's how these are designed to work. Here's what the scriptures tell them to be and how to do them. And here's my personal experience with them. And here's what worked and what didn't for me. And here's why. So you can modify and adapt it to yourself. When I say CEUs, continuing education units, that's what I have to do in my behavioral practice, is I got every 2 years to take my CEUs. So events, involvement, qualified peers, who you associate with, have also to be qualified people so that you don't lose your way. So there's some images, I guess, which I meant to be clicking on the way to make it more colorful, but I get forgetful. So you can see them, just various images that I think illustrate a little bit of my qualifications. I spent a lot of time in these areas, It's my life focus. Even in my clinical work as a behavioral counselor, it's always infused with spiritual and mystical understandings. I don't cram it down anybody's throat. If they're there to solve their addictions, well, then I'm an addiction counselor. But those who want more, I can take them to another level. Those who don't, well, that's okay. I've got clients who don't want anything to do with that. They just want to lose weight, quit smoking, quit doing drugs, or fix their marriage, whatever it may be. And that's fine. And many of them come to me because they know that I can and do offer something more. So those are some of my qualifications. There's images of my teachers. I really need to click on this thing more often. There's one of Aleister Crowley. There's one of Dennis Hawk, my alchemy teacher, who I worked with personally. He's now retired, but what a brilliant man. To me, he is the epitome of the alchemy teachers. I mean, he may be the reappearance of Thoth himself. He would deny that, but all masters do. And then, of course, my guru. And at the moment I look at him, I get tears because I love him so much. Because when you associate with an absolute, actual divine personality that is already enlightened, that never was under the illusion of Maya, material phenomena, it is just such a treat and such a blessing to be associated with the truth. And so my point is that they're out there. I'm certainly not a guru or master like my guru, but I have direct association with him. And I mean direct, like in the same room. I am so grateful. I don't deserve any of that. These other teachers, Aleister Crowley, Dennis Hawk, what I'm offering too, we are people that have not only studied, but used these systems. We're not teaching you in theory. We're teaching you from practice. And I think that's essential to whatever you're getting involved with, that whoever you're reading up on or reading from or learning from should meet these qualifications. Now, I'm going to share with you as we close here a little anecdote. One of the qualifying experiences events in my life was I had a Kundalini experience. Now, we hear that word a lot these days. And again, it's so misused. I recently had a student saying to me that they think they were having a Kundalini awakening. Trust me, as somebody who's had a full-blown one and survived it, because many people don't, because it's hard to keep your mind. They're so intense and powerful. You know if you've had one or not, because it's not something you're not sure of, any more than you're sure if you've ever had an orgasm or fallen in love. You either have or you haven't. It ain't no in-between state. So I had a full-blown Kundalini awakening, initiated to me from an initiatrix in 1992. And these images show the Kundalini symbol, the caduceus, which now used for healing in medical practice because they bastardized it again. Most doctors don't even know where it came from. It literally is the Kundalini symbol. And I included that little Buddhist sexual thing because my initiation was a sexual act through Tantra. And what it does is completely rewire and rearrange your entire consciousness to an expansive state that just does not stop. When I say you're lucky if you survive it, many people go into what's called a Kundalini crisis because it is virtually impossible to be able to interact with the known world while you're in that state because you're in such a different state of mind. You are ever unfolding. You are having an enlightenment experience. And this was so potent and so powerful that eventually, when it started to subside and become more dormant, a little less potent, thank God, because it was just overwhelming. Well, then I was in pursuit of it again. And I spent so much time meditating in particular areas and practices and studying to be able to reactivate my full-blown Kundalini event. Not because it was just blissful, because it's challenging too, but because it was just so intense and so vital that I could not deny the impact and the magnitude of it. And so I felt that I had to attain it again. I felt that was my purpose in life. That the only thing that could possibly matter would be to have the enlightenment experience through Kundalini, that it must be the only thing and the only way. So I meditated and I reached profound states of consciousness through my Kundalini meditations that were trained. And again, I studied for years over. My point is that in spite of that, whether it's tarot or numerology or Kabbalah or Catholicism or Christianity or Judaism or Islam, when it's time, when you get exposed to something more appropriate for you, you'll know when you see it. And as intense and vital as it was for me to experience and sustain the Kundalini event, that's what it looks like. That's what it feels like. That's Alex Gray's work. As vital as that was, I walked away from it in an instant when I learned, truthfully, from my guru, that ultimately, as profound as it is a part of the material phenomena, that it wasn't the completed thing. That's why it can go dormant, because perfect and absolute spiritual realization is permanent. Enlightenment can't go backwards. Once it happens, it's done. And so find the one that resonates with you specifically. It's perfect for you. For me, it's Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion. I am a devotee to the personification of divine love, Radha Krishna. These aren't just concepts and symbols. These are actual events that, and again, that's my tradition, my path. My point to you is to continue to practice and search. And the more your will and the more your longing from your heart extends from you, the more you draw it towards you. Whatever path that may be, practice diligently, explore them all, because only by exploring them all, only by seeking shall you find. I think that's a good place to kind of leave it. So please, again, if you would, if you've enjoyed this, I hope you'll consider some of my services. I hope you'll like my channel. I hope you'll do that little thumbs up thing and maybe even subscribe. That's very helpful. Hits on the website, etc. Make it very possible for me to continue to do this. What I'd like to offer you is next week, what I'm thinking about doing is a little follow-up. We're going to only do a workshop every couple of weeks. My next one, I think, is either going to be on karma, the true meaning of karma and how it works, according to the Vedas, or my death experience. And I might put it out there and see which all of you prefer. Maybe take a little vote. In the meantime, again, in order for me to be able to continue to do this, it's helpful if you want to learn more and know more. I offer a free consultation, and it says 20 minutes, but typically they're going a little bit more because I just don't watch the clock. And I'm easy to take advantage of in that way. It's easy for me to get into the spirit of it. People ask more questions and I'm there. Anyway, I encourage you to take advantage of the free consultation. Give you a sample of what it's like to have a free session, a live session of training in mysticism and spirituality with an authentic guide, which I sincerely trying to be. I also offer readings, mystical gangster training. The workbooks are all on my website, and there's always more coming. I'm always working on more. So I'm thinking next week I will offer a follow-up to just briefly address any questions or concerns that you may have that maybe not be coming to surface at the moment, but as you walk away from this, an hour from now or the next couple of days, think, well, I didn't to ask that. I didn't think about that. Or, hey, you know what? I think he's wrong about this. Whatever it may be, feel free to challenge me. I have no problem with that. I encourage it. And I think what we'll do is maybe next week have a very brief meetup. And if anybody wants to follow up with some questions or comments, we can just do that. And then I'll schedule the next one in a couple of weeks, which again will either be on karma or a near-death experience, or maybe a little bit hybrid of both. So I'll put that out there and see what kind of feedback I get. I encourage your feedback. Please, I work for you. I'm here to serve. It's not about me. It's about what all of you want to know. I'm here to disseminate whatever knowledge that I've gained. Otherwise, it's useless. What good is it to have if I don't share with others? So, any other questions? I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you got a lot out of it. I hope there's always more. There's just never enough of time and all that. But we've had enough time with this, and sometimes I go on too long. So I'll see you soon. Please email me with any questions you have. Subscribe to the channel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'll talk to you soon, and please consider the free consultation. I'd love to work with you. Talk to you another time. Boop. Are you sure you want to end your stream? Yep.